I am making a Dogmatica Regenesis deck profile since I have everything for Regenesis, and I'm only missing one card about for Dogmatica, but that's not something I should really need to worry about. But I mainly just put the two together because they both lock you out of the extra decks, and neither one really actually needs the extra deck to do things. However, there's 5 or 6 monsters in the extra deck that actually do get summoned periodically. Let's start off with the monsters. I play 3 copies of Dogmatic Ecclesia the Virtuous. Ecclesia has the effect where if your opponent has a monster that was summoned from the extra deck, you can special summon Ecclesia for free. And then, if Ecclesia is summoned, then you can add a Dogmatica card from deck to hand. So I believe it's added Dogmatica card. Yep. And then its last effect is it can't be destroyed by monsters, special summoned from the extra deck. And then next I play 1 copy of Dogmatica Maximus. Maximus can be special summoned from your hand by banishing a Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link monster from your graveyard. And then you can activate Maximus' effect once per turn, where you can send 2 different extra deck monsters from your 2 different monsters from your extra deck to the graveyard. To your opponent, send 2 monsters from their extra deck to the graveyard. And then after you use that effect, you cannot summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. Ecclesia is the same way. After you get searched, you can't use your extra deck. And then if your opponent controls a monster special summon the extra deck, you can special summon the 1 copy of Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis the Knighted. I need 1 more Fleur-de-Lis, but for now, 1 works. But Fleur-de-Lis has the effect that you can special summon it as long as your opponent has a monster special summoned from the extra deck in play. And then when it's summoned, if you control another Dogmatica monster, you can then negate the effects of 1 monster your opponent controls. And then if any of your Dogmatica monsters declare an attack, then once per turn, Ecclesia can boost all your Dogmatica monsters by 500. And then that's it for the Dogmatica. Like I said, the only thing I want to add is a second copy of Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis because all of your Genesis monsters, share, with an exception to Archfiend and Lord, share the effect that if you control a monster that's original attack or defense is 2,500, you can special summon from your hand for free once per turn each. And then all their Genesis monsters, with an exception to Lord, share the effect that if they're in the graveyard because they were sent there that turn, then they get to return to your hand. So starting off with the monsters, I play 2 copies of Warrior. Warrior has the quick effect of being able to attribute itself to target a monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand. Then I play 3 copies of Regenesis Sage. Sage is able to, when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can send 1 other Regenesis monster from your face-up field or hand to the graveyard to negate that card and destroy it. Then I play 3 copies of Dragon. Dragon has the effect that you can attribute it as a quick effect to target a spell trap your opponent controls and banish it. One thing I am currently thinking about doing is taking out a warrior and 2 dragons. Probably put them in the side deck. For 3 copies of Duality. And then I can put 1 copy of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon in the extra deck. Mainly just because since Maximus is a level 8 light spellcaster, I can use Duality to special summon Red Eyes Dark Dragoon from the extra deck as a level 8 dark spellcaster. It's just a thought I had, and then I may not do it. And then next, I play 3 copies of Regenesis Archfiend. Regenesis Archfiend has the effect that you can reveal a monster that has 2,500 attack or defense in your hand to then special summon this card. And then when this card is normal or special summoned, once per turn, you can then add a Regenesis card from your deck to your hand, except for another copy of Archfiend. And then after that, it has this end phase effect of being able to return to your hand if it wasn't there during that turn. And then lastly, for the monsters, I play 2 copies of Regenesis Lord. Regenesis Lord has the effect that It cannot, or cannot. It cannot be normal summoners that must be special summoned from your hand by banishing a monster that has 2500 attack and defense. So any of the other Regenesis monsters or Fleur de Lis the Knighted. And then Regenesis Lord has the effect that when it's summoned, you can set a Regenesis spell or trap from your deck. And then during the battle phase only, it gains an additional 2500 attack, which makes it a 5000 body. And then its last effect allows it to inflict piercing. Moving on to the spells, since 9 to 10 of the extra deck cards, I'm only saying 9 to 10 because currently in the extra deck there's only 5 monsters that get summoned. And then the other 10 are just in there for dumping purposes. But for this, starting off with the 1-of spells, I play 1 Pot of Prosperity. This just lets you banish up to 6 monsters from your extra deck to be able to execute an equal number of cards, or number of cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of monsters you banished. Add 1 to your hand, and then for the rest of the turn after this card resolves, your opponent takes half the damage they normally would have taken. And I believe it also locks you out of, let's see, cards. Okay, then you cannot draw cards by card effects during the turn you activate that, which I don't think this deck actually has any. Okay, never mind. I was about to say that it doesn't have any draw power, but the next card is 1 copy of Triple Tactics Talent, which can let you draw 2 cards like your opponent's hand, or take control of the opponent's monster till the end of the turn if they've activated a monster effect during your main phase. And then I play 1 copy of Terraforming. Terraforming and the field spell it adds can be taken out of the deck because this current build is 42 cards. And I'm just playing a field spell in here to be funny since you don't really need the extra deck. But Terraforming just lets you add a field spell, that's all it does. Then I play 1 copy Called by the Grave. Just target a monster, your opponent's graveyard, an effect monster, banish it, and then banish all cards with that monster's same original name until the end of the turn. And then the field spell that's in this deck of Terraforming Searches is 1 copy of the Seal of Void Calcos. I only play the Seal of Void Calcos in this deck because you don't need your extra deck, so... Because when the Seal of Void Calcos is activated, it destroys all your special summon monsters, locks you out of the extra deck. You can activate it once per duel, and then its other effects are once per turn. It can't be destroyed by card effect, and then all your monsters gain 500 attack. And then its last effect makes it so that if you have 2 or more monsters in attack position, your opponent has to attack the strongest monster on your field. Or not in attack position. If you have 2 or more monsters, your opponent has to attack the strongest one. That's its last effect. And then next, I play 2 copies of Dark Spirit's Mastery. This just lets you add Archfiend from your deck to your hand. Let's see. Yeah, you discard a card to then add 1 Destiny Board card. Or a spell or trap, or level 8 Fiend from your deck to your hand. And then next, I play 3 copies of Nadir Servant. The Nadir Servant lets you send a monster from your extra deck to the graveyard to then add Dogmatica monster from your deck to your hand. And then I believe this also locks you out of the extra deck. Let's see. Lets you add Dogmatica monster from your deck graveyard to your hand that has attack less than or equal to the sent monster's attack. It locks you out of the extra deck for the rest of the turn. Oh, you just can't special. Okay, yeah, you can special summon the extra deck. You can only have 1 Nadir Servant per turn. Then next, I play 3 copies of Regenesis Code. Regenesis Code has the effect that you can special summon a Regenesis monster from your deck. Let's see. But that monster you summon will be sent to the graveyard during the end phase of the next turn. And as well as it locks you out of your extra deck until the end phase of the next turn. And then it also has the Grave effect. I don't remember. Let's see. During your main phase, this card is in the graveyard, except for the turn it was sent there. You can banish it to then target one of your banished Regenesis monsters to special summon it. And I believe you can only use each effect of Regenesis Code per turn. You can only use each effect once per turn. That's the last one. And then next, I play 3 copies of Regenesis. Regenesis has the effect that you can take a Regenesis monster from your deck and either add to your hand or send to the graveyard. But if you control a Regenesis monster when this card's activated, then you can add a monster that has 2500 attack and defense instead. So you can actually use it to search for dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis the Knighted, if needed. Next, I play 3 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust. Triple Tactics Thrust can only be activated if your opponent has activated a monster effect during your turn, where it lets you set a normal spell or normal trap from your deck, but if your opponent controls a monster, then you can add it to your hand instead, and then if you set a card with this card's effect, it cannot activate that turn. So next, I play 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet. Forbidden Droplet lets you send any number of other cards from your hand or field to the graveyard, to then be able to negate the effects of monsters your opponent controls up to the number of cards you send, and then it also halves their attack, and then its last effect makes it so your opponent cannot respond with the same type of card you send. So if you send a spell and a trap, your opponent can only respond with a monster. If you send a monster, spell, and trap, your opponent can't respond with anything at all. And then it just negates the effects and halves their attack until the end of the turn. And then, moving on to the traps, I play 1 copy of Dogmatica Punishment. Punishment lets you send a target face-up monster your opponent controls. Send a monster from your extra deck that has equal or higher attack than that targeted monster, to then destroy it. And then, I believe it also locks you out of the extra deck. Yep, you can only activate 1... Oh, no. Yeah, and then it destroys that monster, and then until the end of the next turn, it locks you out of your extra deck. And then lastly, I play 2 copies. The Regenesis has the effect that you can send a Regenesis monster from your deck to the graveyard, to then be able to target one monster your opponent face-up monster your opponent controls, flip it face down. And then Regenesis also has the second effect. Its other effect is that during the main phase, it has the effect that during your opponent's main phase, I think it's just your opponent's turn. Let's see, during your opponent's turn, you can send this card to the graveyard to special summon as many different Regenesis monsters as possible from your hand, graveyard, and banishment. And you can only use one of its 2 effects per turn and only once that turn. So use this effect to flip, you can't send it to then be able to summon, or if you summon, you can't use the effect to flip. And that's it for the main deck. Like I said, the main deck is 42 cards, and you can easily take out the Steel Warrior Calcos and Terraforming. And then for the 5 monsters you actually summon from the extra deck, I play 1 copy of IP Masquerena. This just lets you link summon on your opponent's turn during your opponent's main phase by using itself as link material. And then a link monster that is link summoned using IP Masquerena cannot be destroyed by card effects, or your opponent's card effects. And I play 1 copy of SP Little Knight. Little Knight has the effect that if it's link summoned by using a Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link monster, you can target 1 card on the field or in the graveyard and banish it. And then if your opponent activates a card or effect, SP Little Knight can use its effect to banish 2 monsters on the field, 1 monster you control, and 1 other monster until the end phase. And one other thing I realized I forgot to mention is if you use the first effect of SP Little Knight, then you cannot declare direct attacks that turn. And then next I play 1 copy of Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos has the effect that if it's link summoned by using a level 5 or higher monster, then it cannot be, your opponent cannot target or destroy it with card effects. And then it has 3 effects it can activate when it destroys a monster in battle, where you can have it gain 1500 attack. You can make it be able to declare a second attack during that battle phase. Or you're going to be able to declare a second attack during the next battle phase. That's what it was. And then its last effect is you can then banish one card in the field. But I'm mainly just playing Soldier of Chaos just because of how it is able to just not be able to be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Because if you make it, then since Ecclesia is the only monster that's level lower than level 5, every other monster will allow you to summon this with its protections. And then last for the Lincoln monsters, I played one copy of World Gears of, I can never remember how to pronounce this card's name. Theological Demiurgy. There you go. World Gears of Theological Demiurgy. But it has the effect that I actually never read. I just remember it's actually pretty good. Cannot be used as link material. This link summoned card is unaffected by other monsters' effects. You only use each of the following effects once per turn, where during the main phase, if you control this card that was link summoned using 3 monsters that had 3 different types and attributes on the field, you can destroy all other cards on the field. And then if your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck, except during the damage step, then you special summon a World Legacy monster from your deck, but this mainly is in here for its ability to just wipe the board. And it's because when you make this, it'll be unaffected by other monster effects. And then you can just, because of how everything is, let's see, actually. So I believe it's like earth, wind, light. Yeah, water. Yeah, it's every attribute except fire and dark. So it's not the hardest thing to make it using 3 different types and attributes, as there's warrior, dragon, spellcaster, fiend, illusion. And then the last monster in the extra deck that actually gets played is one copy of Superstar Slayer Typhon Sky Crisis. If your opponent has summoned, twice from the extra deck, then you can special summon this card using your strongest monster. Let's see, during the next turn or turn after your opponent special summon 2 or more monsters from the extra deck. Using the monster on your field with the highest attack, you're twice if it's a tie. And then if you do summon it that way, then neither player can activate the cards or can activate the effects of monsters that have 3,000 or more attack. And then once per turn, you can detach material to then target one monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand. And then for the other extra deck monsters that just get sent, also while I'm thinking about it, I'll probably end up taking this out for Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, should I actually toss in the copies of Duality. But for the monsters that are in here just to be sent to the graveyard, I play one copy of Tri-Brigade Frigide, the Baron Blossom. This card just lets you draw a card when it's sent to the graveyard. Then I play one copy of Bucephalus Mark II. But Bucephalus has the effect that if your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can banish this card from your graveyard to then banish all cards your opponent controls. Make sure I actually got that right. Yep, banish all cards your opponent controls. And then it also has the effect that if you send this, you can send a Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast from your deck, or extra to the graveyard. So you can send this and then just be able to send that. But I honestly probably won't do that very often. Next, I play 3 copies of Garura, Wings of Resonant Life. This card has the effect that when sent to the graveyard, you can draw a card. But I'll probably take one of them out for a second copy of Elder Entity Natis. Natis has the effect that when sent to the graveyard, you can target one card on the field and destroy it. Make sure I got that right, because sometimes... Yeah, I target one card on the field and destroy it. And then next, I play 2 copies of Golden Cloud Beast Malong. When this card's sent to the graveyard, then you can just target one card or one monster your opponent controls. Target a face-up card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. Then I play 1 copy of Cyframe Lord Omega. Cyframe Lord Omega is only in here as they can put itself back. While it's in the graveyard and you activate its effect, it'll put itself back in the extra deck and then lets you put one other card in your graveyard back into the deck. Which I believe it's a card. It might have to be a monster card. Yep. You target one other card in your graveyard, shuffle both itself and that targeted card back into the deck. That's what it is. And then lastly, I play 1 copy of Myriologic Aggregator. when this card's sent to the graveyard, it lets you target a face-up card your opponent controls, negates effectively in the turn. Which usually, when you use Omega's effect, I'll have Omega put Aggregator back, just so that you can use the negation of Aggregator more than just once. But anyway, that is it for my Regenesis Dogmatica deck profile. If you have any ideas what I can do to improve the deck, any ideas for decks like see made in the future, or decks like see face each other, comment down below. I always read the comments. And like I said it before, I think I said it before, I had to make this video multiple times, but the only things I was thinking about changing were adding 3 copies of Duality and Dragoon to the deck, and then possibly adding 3 of the continuous spell that lets you ritual summon for Dogmatica, and then 1 copy of Dogmatica Albazoa. Those are the cards I'm currently thinking about adding and tweaking, and once I actually like how the deck is, I'll make it again as a little update. But like I said, if you have any comments, if you're still here, then leave them. I always read the comments. Thank you for watching.